Hello there and welcome. My name is Santi and I'm really happy for this tutorial because it's gonna be a really cool way to deal with images. You can already see what I'm talking about, and this is what I'm gonna teach you today. How you can make this kind of mood board a style for displaying images in one single node. Right now I'm of course in preview mode in Obsidian, and what is even cooler is that we can even zoom into them like so by holding and clicking just a left click button. So it's really cool. By the way, these images, they're wallpapers that I use. They're not mine, so just a bit of a disclaimer. But yeah, with that said, I'm gonna show you how you can achieve this effect. This is not by default set to work, at least not in this way. Yes, you could make it work, but I don't think you can make it look this cool, out of the box. So I'm gonna show you how to customize all of this to make this happen. This is inspired by a forum question. So yeah, thanks to Joshua, who was the guy who posted a question on if this was even possible, and I'm gonna link it in the show notes. Sorry, in the description. The forum where there's a lot of discussion on how to achieve this. There's other approaches, and this is the one that I kind of came up with, combining other people's approaches. I put a bit of my input in here, so I'm not claiming this as totally mine, but I'm gonna teach it to you today. So I hope you're excited to learn this because it really allows for some opportunity to just visualize a lot of images in a single node and to make Obsidian a lot more visual, which at the end of the day is a really powerful way to enhance the way you interact with Obsidian. So with that said, this is not a very beginner friendly tutorial. This is going to be a bit more advanced. So if you're a beginner, still don't worry. You don't need to know any programming. You don't need to know any code. If you can follow these instructions, like it's gonna work. It's just that I do recommend that you go through the fundamentals of Obsidian so that you can learn to solve some issues when they arise and so on. And if that's the case, then I highly recommend you check out my Obsidian online course. Is made for beginners and is helping you become a power user in Obsidian to be really good at it. And yeah, I mean, I just think you will really enjoy it. It's really breaking down all the fundamentals of Obsidian. You can check out the lessons. As of recording right now, there's an early price discount that you can check out because you'll get update to future videos. So yeah, if you want to learn the fundamentals of Obsidian and if you want to right now have a discount on when I release more resources on how to manage with all your informations, how to write projects in here, how to write a book, how to write blog posts, how to draft videos, and anything that you want to create, then this is the course for you. But of course I'm a bit biased with that. So yeah, do check it out if you're interested. And with that said, let's get into the tutorial of today. Alright, so now I'm gonna show you how to achieve this, and right now I am using, as of recording this, I am using, if I go to settings, I am using version 0.9.19. I believe some of the functionality I'm gonna show you today, such as the snippets, which allows you to use CSS code in a much more efficient way than actually putting it in your theme, like we had to do in previous versions. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, I'm gonna walk you through it. But yeah, I believe this functionality of snippets is available since last update, so I believe it's since 0.9.18. So just make sure you're in the latest version. If it just depends on if you do it, if you have insider privileges to check out updates beforehand, you might be able to see this functionality updated before. But yeah, just make sure you're in the latest version and it should work. Okay, so with that said, the first thing we need to do is, in my case, I'm gonna just go to this other note. In here I have just a blank note, and in case you're wondering what this theme is, this is one that I created. It's not yet available in the community, although my other theme, it is, in case you want to check that out. It's in community themes, and if you look for my name, Santi, you should be able to check this one out. It's quite similar, but in green. So yeah, you might see some things hidden, and by the way, I'm using a lot of shortcuts, so let me just turn on the shortcuts. Cool, there we go. So if you see me using shortcuts such as this, I'm gonna leave a link in the description where I have a blog post where I put all the shortcuts that I created for myself, because these are not defaults. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that you will see me use something called Vim mode, which if we go to settings editor is in here. And it just means that I'm gonna be pressing a lot of keys, and it's gonna allow me to navigate through things quickly, to copy, to delete really quick to go to the bottom and so on. So if you see me pressing random keys, it's because I'm using Vim. Now, don't turn this on if you don't know Vim. This is something I plan to teach in my Obsidian online course, so maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already available. But yeah, it's just something I use to speed up my process, and I'm so used to it that if I turn it off, I create a mess. So that's why it's on. Now, all right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create a table, because what we did before is just a table with images with some extended functionality to zoom in as well as to hide the lines of tables. So first things first is we're gonna install a plugin that we need to make tables in a much quicker way. So the first thing we need to do is go to settings, which is activated with Control comma, and we need to go down here to third-party plugins. Now we need to turn this safe mode off, right? And now all that means, it means that these are community plugins. These are not plugins made by the creators of Obsidian. It's just telling you be careful, because some of them might not be very stable. They might still be in development, and they can, like sometimes you run the risk of technical difficulties, things freezing, in which case it's just solved by deleting the plugin. It's not a big problem, but it's always good to research. You can browse in here. You can research what each plugin is about. In our case, we're going to go to advanced tables. This is categorized by the most popular ones, but in case this goes down, you can just search for any plugin here, advanced tables. In here, you can go to GitHub, where you'll be able to see some of the code. You can even ask questions or like ask for help and that kind of stuff. So with that said, now we can install it, and we're just going to wait for that. Perfect. So now that is installed, we can just go here X, and it's going to be available here. All we need to do is turn it on. Okay, if you need to delete the plugin because it's causing problems, this one is very stable, but if you ever find another plugin, you can just X, and that's going to uninstall it. Okay, now make sure you either close Obsidian and open it again, or reload it. Right now I'm in editing mode, as you can see. So if we go to preview mode like so, we can go Control R. Okay, and now that is the same as turning it off and on. The reason why I do it in preview mode instead of editing mode is that I realize that sometimes the reload doesn't work in edit mode. Hopefully this is something that works in the future, but in case it's not working for you, maybe that's why. So just try that out. Cool. Now we should be able to use this symbol right here. This is called a vertical line. Let me just zoom that in. And yeah, keep in mind, that's not an L, that's not an I, that's not a capital I. It's a vertical line. Cool. And in my case, it's done with Shift \. But if you don't know what it is in your keyboard, just search for it, like how to do how to do vertical line in Windows, in Mac, whatever you're using, and you'll be able to find it. Now that you have that, you can press Tab, and it's gonna create a table. If you press Tab again, it's gonna create another column, right? If we go here and we do another vertical line, we press Tab, it's gonna do that. And now you can select and copy. Of course, if you are not using Vim mode, you can just right click and paste it. It doesn't even work when there it goes. Cool. Which of course is just Control C, Control V. Either way, because I'm in Vim mode, things are a bit tricky. So either way, you know how to copy and paste. I'm not gonna teach you that. But yeah, now we can let's just do an example table right here just to show you. When you press Tab, you go to the next possible box, right? And with Shift Tab, you go to the previous one, like that. Cool. So if we're here, we're just gonna go 1, and now we're gonna go 2. There we go. And when you press Tab, it formats things nicely as well. So Control E, now we're in preview mode. We can see that is making a really nice looking table. Just to show you, it looks like that. And of course, this adapts to whatever the space is. So we press Tab, it's gonna format it nicely. Sometimes there's kind of like these small issues, but it's fine. There you go. And you get the point. So yeah, the table is very adaptive. It's really cool. And with that said, sorry for that. With that said, now we know how to create tables. Now the really cool thing that we can do is we can put images in tables, okay? So if we're gonna do this like that, let me just create another table like this. Now we can put images in here. Now the way you do images, you probably already know this, but in case you forgot, is just exclamation mark, and then you do the double brackets. The same way you would look for a note, you can look for images, and you can search for the title of your image in my case, and this is important, you know, in my case, I have all my images in attachments, you know. So the way that you define the place where you want your images to be searched is by going to settings, then you go to files, and here you write the folder where you want your images to be read. Okay, so when you have that, things should work pretty good. And now if we look for any of this, it's gonna say this in the attachments folder, so that's how you know is an image. You can even just look for attachments, and now it's only gonna filter things inside attachments in case you have a lot of notes. Of course, right here, because this is a demo, my vault is empty, so it's even easier for me. But yeah, just make sure you search for whatever you're looking for. You can tap to complete. And now let's go for this image. Cool. If we go into edit mode, now we can see that the image is working. Cool. So now what we need to do is we need to put that in the table. So just for the sake of showing you how I normally do things, we're gonna go here, and now we're gonna go and search for any images here, and we're gonna do the same, searching for another image like that. And when we press tab, everything formats nicely. Now keep an eye for this. Sometimes this happens. There's an extra bracket in here, like sometimes there's that little issue, so make sure you delete anything extra. Just make sure of that. Sometimes it happens and I'm not sure why, but yeah, just keep an eye for that kind of stuff. Now if we go into edit mode, we can see that it works, right? And right now I have activated the magnification thing, you know, like this thing to make it big. That is not there by default. I'm going to show you how to activate that in a second. But first we need to make sure that we get rid of these yellow lines. We don't want them. If you like them, then that's awesome. You're done. But if you don't like them, I'm going to show you how to get rid of them. Cool. So yeah, that's the idea. I'm going to duplicate this just to show you because there's lines everywhere. And what we need to do is we need to activate a bit of code, a bit of CSS code. Let me just get rid of that. So what we need to do right now, and you know what, let me just fill this up with other images just for the sake of making things nice, okay? Cool, there we go. So I added a lot more images. By the way, if you have a table in here and you also have, you know, like say you have two images here, one here and one here. If you want to add another one, you can just press tab and that should create another column. Just something useful. Now, you know, when you have a table, everything that you put in the top is like a description or a name of whatever comes after. You know, we all know this from Excel and that kind of software, but you know, like that is going to format things like this. Now, when it comes to images, you don't really need to put anything in there. If you want, you can just put another row of images in there like so, and that is going to be practically the same. I'm kind of half-hearted between doing that versus just leaving it empty. I think empty is a bit cleaner. So right now, of course, it just creates this thing, but because we're going to get rid of these lines, it's not going to cause a problem. Just something to keep in mind. Right, so now onto the step on how to get rid of these lines. We need to add some code. Previously, this was done in the theme. Whatever theme you were using, you needed to add the code there. But since version 0.9.18 of Obsidian, now we're able to do it in a much better way. So for that, we're going to go to our files. So in my case, I'm using Linux. So this is going to look different depending on if you're on Mac or Windows or whatever you're using. So the idea is that in here are my nodes for the vault that I'm in, right? In this case, I'm in Dropbox and I'm in Obsidian demo, okay? So what we need to do is we need to show something called hidden files. And hidden files are also called dot files. These are files that start with a dot. That's what they're called, dot files. And they're invisible. You cannot see them, but when you press the right shortcut, in my case, Control H, you can see them. And with Control H, you hide them again. Now, depending on you're in Windows or Mac, I believe for Mac is the same, Control H, not 100% sure. So just make sure that you research, you can Google how to show hidden files in Windows, what is the shortcut, something like that, or how to, you know, search for the hidden file in Mac, also called dot files, okay? But once you know how to do that, you can see things. Now, if you can't find this, don't worry, because I'm going to show you a much better way to do this either way. But I think it's good to understand where this is, okay? So with that said, we're going to just close this and we're going to go to find our text editor. You might already have one, but if not, I've recommended in the past Atom, and I really like Atom. I believe it might even be a bit more user friendly, beginner friendly. But recently I've been playing with VS Code, and I find it a bit more powerful. It really is up to you. I really love both. But right now I'm gonna show you VS Code. In the previous videos I've used Atom, and again, Atom is amazing. It might even be a bit easier for beginners. So with that said, now we can install this in whatever operating system that you have. And now I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So now I am in VS Code, and if you go to File, Open Folder, you'll be able to find the exact folder of your Vault where your Obsidian nodes are. And with that, you can even edit things from here. I mean, I don't necessarily recommend it because that's what Obsidian is for. But what is really cool about VS Code and Atom and other text editors that you can actually do programming in here, meaning that even if you're not a programmer, you can access quickly this type of files, which is the one that I recently showed you. So like I recently mentioned, like if you go Control H in your files, you're gonna be able to access .obsidian, but VS Code or Atom or any other text editor is gonna show you that in here by default. So that's why I think is one of the reasons to use this, and also because you can edit the text in here, which is really useful, right? So now we can go to .obsidian, and in .obsidian there's going to be a few different options that are going to be what we're going to explore right now. Plugins is where all the plugins from the community go. So the one that we just installed is there. You don't need to touch that. Themes is where your themes go. Again, we're not going to touch that. What we're going to touch right now is the snippets, okay? And snippets is what is going to allow us to determine the specific code that we're going to use to achieve, in this case, getting rid of the lines in Obsidian for the table. So what I called it is table border. You can name this whatever you want as long as it makes sense, but do make sure to put .css. We can do that by just creating a new file. We call it table whatever .css. Cool. But because I already have that created, I'm not going to create it again. Table border .css. And when you open that, you're going to copy this text in here. Let me just resize this nicely. There we go. So all you need to do is write this. I'm gonna leave this in the description, but if not, you can just write it. Just make sure you don't make any typos. It's table border and then background modifier border, none. In here, you can specify a color to make the table look in a different color, but in this case, we don't want the table. Now, what's important is that by using this feature, these snippets, you are able to determine this in specific files, right? So I'm going to show you that in a second, but that's what's really cool about snippets. So instead of writing this in the theme CSS or anywhere else, you can put it here, and now you can activate it when you want to, all right? So once you have this, now we can go back to Obsidian. Now, of course, make sure this is saved. And now when we go back to Obsidian, we can now go to settings with Control comma. And now we need to go to appearance, okay? By default, you'll be here. Just go to appearance. And in here, you'll be able to see CSS snippets. By default, this is going to be empty. But once you create this one, I already created both of them. This is going to be off, and this is not going to be there yet. This is going to be off as well. You can reload it, and you're going to be able to see table border, which is the one we just added. You turn it on, and now make sure you reload things. I'm going to go into preview mode, reload things, and it's not necessarily, we reloaded. It's not going to work yet. This is really depending on how Obsidian behaves in future updates. Again, I'm in 0.9.19. Let me just show you that. This is the version I'm in right now. This might change in the future because snippets should work for every node, but yeah, it's kind of tricky the way things work right now. So this is what I found works in this case. This functionality is going to allow us to be able to determine different styles in different types of nodes. But in this case, this is exactly what we need. What we need to do is do these 3 lines on top, like that, and then like that. So two rows of hyphens. And in here, we're going to go CSS class. This is what you need to write. Colon. Then you need to open one of these brackets, and we're going to write the name of the file that we just created. If we go again, it's going to be called table border, right? Table hyphen border. And now let's give it a go. Control E for going to preview mode, and it works. The lines are no longer there. This works for me. I notice it works without the without any theme. So like the default theme, it works with this one, which is the one that I use. Right now, I have some extended functionality that right now I am more in like a normal mode where I have the sidebar and so on. But either way, it works great. Now, of course, we can't yet zoom. We can't click on images and zoom into them. So in order to do that, the process is going to be very similar. We're going to go again to our text editor, in this case VS Code. And what we're going to do is we're going to create another file. Again, you do this by new file. You write the name and you go CSS. Okay. Again, I already created that. So it's going to be called zoomimage.css. Now, if we zoom out into that, we can see that this is the code that we need to paste in here. This is not something I created, so this is not mine, but I found it in the forum, and it's really amazing because it's going to allow us to zoom into images. So I'll leave a link in the description where you can go to the forum and check this out. So just paste this in here, paste this in this file, name it what you want, zoom image works, and now we can go back again to Obsidian. Of course, make sure you save this. And if we go again to settings, we can go to appearance, and now we can go back to CSS snippets. Now, if you don't see it here yet, make sure to reload it. And now you should be able to see it there. You turn it on and it should work, right? Let's go to preview mode and it works. If it doesn't, Control R to reload, or you can always close Obsidian and open it up again, but Control R reload should work just the same. Now, as you can see, it works, right? If we click, there's a little icon in here that shows us a magnifying glass. If we click and hold the click, we can zoom, and when I let go of the click, we go back to normal. And that's how we can zoom into every image. And with that, we're done. It works, and we can edit and add more images. And as you can see, this is kind of cut. You might have to scroll back and forth when you have too many columns. Like Obsidian has these, it's kind of like a border of width around, like there's an invisible line here and an invisible line here. You can change that in the CSS, but that's a bit more tricky. I am okay with it, to be honest. It makes things cleaner. You can have as many images as you want. Of course, right now they're duplicated, but it works, and that's what matters. And yeah, we can zoom into them. So yeah, super happy with it. Hope that helps and hope that works for you. I know there's a lot of steps into this. If you are a beginner and you went through it, congratulations, that was tricky. And if you're more advanced, hope I wasn't explaining things too slow. So yeah, feel free to provide any feedback in the comments, ask me any questions, videos that you might like to see in the future. And yeah, make sure to check out my Obsidian online course. And yeah, well, that's my face. I don't show it in this video, not because I'm shy, but because it's more work to film myself. But yeah, either way, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Check out the course, and I'll see you in the next video.